And I hope you're having a good Friday. Hope you're doing good. And I talk about things here. So, no, I'm not going to talk about marketing or Bitcoin. I'm going to talk about a topic that I sometimes delve into on this channel. I delve into it a lot more in other places, but here I talk about politics occasionally. Politics and the Middle East conflict and things of that nature. And right now, there is news, right? What is that news? Well, the International Criminal Court, the ICC, has issued arrest warrants yesterday for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Bibi Netanyahu and the former Defense Minister Yoav Gallant. Those of you who don't know, the Defense Minister is like the Secretary of Defense in the United States. He's like the top guy for the military. Basically, he runs the IDF. And Yoav Gallant recently resigned from that post because of differences he had with the Prime Minister in terms of the prosecution of the current war against Hamas and the process of negotiating the release of the hostages from Gaza. But obviously in the beginning, he was supportive. And for the first, year and a couple months, he was in that post as the defense minister, for the first year and some months of that war. And, his public disagreements, I guess, became too much for him to, stay in the cabinet and keep doing that job. So he decided it was time to go. Now, for those of you who don't know, the ICC is a voluntary organization that member states can sign up to if they want. There are some notable countries that have not signed up to what's known as the Rome Treaty, where people signed up to the ICC. And one of those countries is Israel, and another country is the United States. And what does that mean? Well, it means that technically they are not part of the ICC. So whatever the ICC decides is not necessarily, in fact, not at all, legally binding to the United States or to Israel. And on top of that, the ICC has no enforcement mechanism legally. What does that mean? It means that whatever they rule cannot be enforced necessarily. It's all done either voluntarily or through some kind of military force or military operation or other kinds of operations, secret services and things like that, which can go and grab and arrest people that it believes should be brought to face justice at the criminal court. Now, what is significant about this arrest warrant that was issued for Netanyahu and for Yoav Gallant? Well, first of all, it was not only issued for them, it was also issued for 3 people who are no longer alive. Namely, former members of Hamas, which Israel has taken out during this war. Pardon me for 1 second. I'll be right with you. Yeah. Okay. So Israel has successfully eliminated 3 people that were also listed on this arrest warrant, or on these arrest warrants. Meanwhile, you have the political establishment of the Palestinian people celebrating these arrest warrants. Interesting that they don't mention anything about the Palestinians that were listed on there, notably the Hamas members who have been eliminated. And they, of course, view these arrest warrants for the Israeli Prime Minister and former Defense Minister as a kind of a victory and a step towards what they believe is justice. Because they will tell you that Israel is committing a genocide and that the International Criminal Court is correct in seeking the arrest of the Prime Minister of Israel and the former Defense Minister of Israel because it believes that they may be guilty of committing genocide against the Palestinians in Gaza. Well, if Israel is committing genocide in Gaza, then why has it continued to provide food aid at a rate that is much higher than prior to October 7th? Why are the Palestinians recipients of an amount of food that is equal to 3,000 kilocalories or 3,000 calories per day, which makes them the 8th highest recipients of calories per person per day in the world? That's right. There are only 7 other nations on Earth where the average food intake is higher than 3,000 calories. And that makes the whole thing kind of questionable. Now you can say, well, the average Palestinian in Gaza is not getting 3,000 calories a day. Yes, that is true, probably. And that is because Hamas is stealing their food illegally, which is a war crime. And then on top of that, Hamas illegally, in another active war crime, sells the food that is supposed to be distributed at no cost, for free, to the Palestinians in Gaza, sells it to them at a premium markup on the open market. So they're committing a double war crime by stealing the food and then selling it at a markup on the markets. Why is nothing said about that at the ICC? Right? On top of that, if Israel is committing genocide, why are there more people in Gaza alive today than there were a year ago? Right? Birth rates, that's why. More people have been born in the last year and some months than have died. Now, I'm not justifying or saying that it's okay to, we can't just, ignore the amount of death of people in Gaza as a result of war, but people die in war. And it is a horrible thing. And that's why Israelis do not like war. And Israel does not seek war. And Israel does not want to eliminate every last member or even a significant portion of the population of the Palestinians or any country that it is currently in conflict with. But of course, people who side with the Palestinians, but specifically not the Palestinians, but the terrorists that oppress them, will tell you, well, that's just Israel being aggressive and occupiers and all this thing. And they will conveniently forget the fact that the Palestinians' population has grown tenfold since 1948. And specifically in Gaza. They've 10x their population. And they've more than doubled their population since Israel left Gaza in 2005. So, for a country that's committing genocide, Israel is doing a really poor job of committing that genocide, right? We know that kinetically, Israel could commit massive genocide if it wanted to. It could carpet bomb Gaza. It could end all life there, but it has not. And people will say, well, isn't that just noble? They're just, they don't want to commit genocide. Oh, but they still managed to kill 40,000 people. First of all, the number of dead in Gaza that is promulgated by the Hamas Health Ministry is literally promulgated by a terrorist organization. So why would anybody believe those numbers? Oh, but the news organizations verified it. How do they verify it? They spoke to members of the Hamas members of Hamas Health Ministry. So they spoke to a bunch of terrorists or people who work for a terrorist organization or people who are working underneath the umbrella of a terrorist organization who have to spout out these lies, whether they agree with doing so or not. So the entire thing obviously reeks of bias against Israel. And if you look at who is in fact in charge of the prosecution of this case, right, Mr. Khan, he himself has a checkered past, let's say, to put it mildly, and is under investigation for sexual abuses of a coworker. And so obviously this is a perfect excuse for him to distract attention from the very investigation that he is undergoing. Oh, but this has nothing to do with it. Israel is committing genocide. Okay, again, if Israel is committing genocide, why are there more people alive in Gaza today than there were before October 7th? Oh, but Israel is killing 40,000 people. Well, if Israel has killed 40,000 people, of which many of them are obviously terrorists or members of Hamas, right? Even if you could say 60% of the people are innocent civilians, right? The kill ratio of civilians to terrorists is the lowest seen in any urban warfare in history. By far, it's not even close, right? Typically, the accepted rate historically has been about 10 to 1. In this case, we're talking it's far less than 2 to 1. So when you look at the data set, right, you have to consider where is this data that demonstrates the claims. And the answer is it just does not exist, right? It simply does not exist. So, to put it briefly, the International Criminal Court has exposed its hypocrisy with these arrest warrants. And I say that as a person who is not a fan of the current leadership in Israel, okay? I believe that Prime Minister Netanyahu should in fact face accountability for the mistakes he made leading up to the October 7th attacks, right? Well, anyway, that's a different topic for a different subject. But clearly, this arrest warrant issued was done for political reasons to cover the biases against Israel by the ICC. Okay, that's going to do it for now. I'll talk to you later. Bye.